man. His name was Derek Redmond. And Derek had a dream all his life growing up. He wanted to run in the Olympics. And he was getting ready to go to the Olympics. He was in the semifinals. If he won this race, he would go to the Olympics and represent the United States in the 400-meter run. And the 400 meter is one lap around the track. All right, keep the championship wrestling till after. There's no medals in this. I know, Kristen, we ought to give Kristen a medal for being mom. Anyway, Derek was 400 meters, and he got up, and this was literally the race of his lifetime. He would get to run in the finals, and so he's in the race, and he is ahead. He's in the lead, and they come around the last turn to the straightaway, and then he's running and giving. Everything he has is what we call kick it to the end. It's that last burst of energy, and when he did, he felt a sharp, searing pain in his leg, and he fell. He pulled the hamstring. He literally tore the hamstring in his leg. And he went down, and he got up, and he started limping to the finish line. And everybody is just like, what happened? And all the runners go past him. And then as he's running, obviously in grueling pain, someone comes for the stands, through the stands, and pushing people out of the way. And he gets down to the track, and one of the guards try to stop him, the security guards, pushes him out of the way, and he runs over to the runner. Do you know who it was? It was Derek's dad. And his dad looked and said, son, you don't have to do this. And Derek goes, no, Daddy, I got this far. I'm going to finish the race. And his daddy said, okay, I'm finish it with you then. Put his arm around him and literally helped Derek get to the finish line, one step at a time. The race was long over. Obviously, he didn't win. But when he got to the finish line, you could have heard a pin drop. It was quiet. And all at once, he crossed the finish line, and the people stood and clapped and cheered and wept. Derek did not win, but he finished the race. He had a determination, no matter how much it hurt, he was not going to quit. He would finish the race. You know, that reminds me, I'm preaching this morning out of Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. And it says this: since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses, let us run the race that God has set before us, throwing aside anything that will slow us down, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. What's that race that we're running? That race, you're going to say, is life. That race is being obedient to what God says. And what I want you to know is it's going to be hard sometimes. People are going to hurt you. You're going to get hurt. But don't quit, because your heavenly Father is right there. And it's said that there's a huge cloud of witnesses all around you. There's people cheering you on. Your parents, your friends are there, the ones at church. And you also have those that are in heaven that have fought this fight already, saying, you can do it, we can make this happen. So know that as you run this race, you're never alone. You've got someone right there with you. Let's pray. Dear Jesus, sometimes life is difficult. Help us to teach these kids through our lives, keeping our eyes on you, that they likewise can keep their eyes on you. Run the race that is set before them and finish well. Jesus, in your name we pray. Amen. Thank you, Walt. That was awesome. Congratulations, by the way.
Big Red Book, page 333. 333. What a fella fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on the everlasting arms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms. I have blessed peace with my Lord so near. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. Right there.
If you didn't catch it in the children's sermon, I'll tell you now, turn to the book of Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. We want to look at a race, the race before us. I want to look at that this morning. As you're turning there, a couple of quick announcements that I want to remind you. The ladies' pie class, 19th at 9:30 in Fellowship Hall. Robbie will be doing it. No children's choir till September. You'll be meeting back then. Revival services 11th through the 14th. Make plans to attend now. Clint Sinclair will be the evangelist that'll be coming up. If some of you ladies would like to meet after church this evening and talk about revival and a little bit of planning, Jill will be there and a couple others. So if you'll just meet with her after church tonight, talk about the revival. Did I get that right? I guess. Going to be going on. And hallelujah, only 39 days till fall. I don't know if any of you are counting or not, but I am. And I am so ready. And I looked Wednesday, there's a chance of rain, and there's a chance of rain for the next 10 days after that. And it could rain all 10 of those days, and I would not care. I would even sacrifice to mow my grass. Randy, you're probably going to go bankrupt because I haven't been buying any gas at Total for the lawnmower because I mowed Friday for the first time since the 1st of June. Not had to mow, haven't had any rain. So anyway, I would pay the money just so I could mow so we could. It's so dry, and I'm tired of mowing grasshoppers. I was mowing, and one of the grasshoppers jumped up and went down the back of my shirt on the lawnmower. And I'm trying to figure out how to get off that lawnmower and not run over myself and get that thing out of my shirt. I was doing a jig. You'd think the Holy Spirit had got a hold of me and I had done gone Baptist-costal on you. Anyway, there's more to that story, but we don't need to hear that. I want to talk about a race today. I want to talk about a race. When you look at Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, that's all I'm going to look at. It says this. That big word, therefore. Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. Let us run the race with, let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. I don't know how many of you remember back in probably 2007, Vacation Bible School, Game Day Central. Does that ring a bell yet? Our theme was the verse from Hebrews. And the song was run, run, run the race. Keep the pace. Run the race. Keep the faith. Keep your eyes on Jesus. You remember it, don't you, Greta? Jill and I did the associational Bible clinic, and we literally at the end of our opening ran out because we were running the race with endurance. That's the day when I could still run. And I love that theme and the message that was there. And this morning I want to look at that because we are in a race, a very difficult race. And when we look at that race, well, let's just get into Scripture first, and we're going to talk about it as we go. And there's 4 things I want to bring up at the end of it. And the first one is, most Bibles, this represents a transition in Hebrews. In Hebrews. We just finished chapter 11, and can anybody give me a summation of Hebrews? What is Hebrews 11 called? Faith. Faith's Hall of Fame. The pictures of all the saints that are there. And that is literally the transitional chapter in Hebrews to chapter 12 and chapter 13. And what encouragement it is when we learn of the witness of chapter 11, where we learn about, starting with Abel, his faith, Abraham, Noah, Moses. When we look at Sarah, and we go on to look at all those other great saints that have come and gone, and even as we end in that chapter, the others that were tortured, others had the trial of mocking, scourgings, chains, imprisonment, stones, sawed in two, tempted, were slain with the sword, wandered about in sheepskin, goatskin, destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in the deserts, the mountains, den and caves of the earth. And in verse 39 and 40, he says, and these, having obtained a good testimony through faith, did not receive the promise. God having provided something better for us, they should be made. Without going into a lot of detail there, and we could, but I want you to see, that's not where the transition happens in Hebrews. It actually starts with faith's Hall of Fame. And when you look at all of these, the faith of Moses, of Joseph, of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Abraham, those men of faith that were there, the transition starts in that chapter. But look at what he says in chapter 12, because when you read Faith's Hall of Fame, look at the promise that we have of the great Colosseum where the race is really run. Because you remember, he just said they wandered in deserts, mountains, dens, caves. They had a good testimony, but God provided something better for us, that we should not be made perfect apart from us. He says, therefore, okay, because of all of this that just happened, consider this. We also, who is we also? All of us, all of those that he was writing. Now, the writer of Hebrews is writing specifically to a group of people who have entered into the faith, but it's become increasingly difficult for them because it's hard to let go of the tradition. It's hard to let go of the law and the sacrifices. And you have these that come in that are the Judaizers and saying, oh, yeah, you got to have Christ. Sure, but we still need the law also. And because Paul is writing earlier to the other churches and saying that the law, we don't need the law. We will observe some tenets of the law, and you're going to say, what tenets of the law do you obey? Well, what about the 10 Commandments? The law that Jesus upheld in his ministry here on earth. But they were having difficulty in letting go of the past. Letting go of the past. And that unbelief that is still residing with them. But also for us today, he says, we also, surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, every sin, everything that encumbrances us. That therefore is not the beginning of a new chapter, it's the continuation of chapter 11. Saints, before the readers, that cloud of witnesses that is there surrounding. I want you to understand that that phrase is only used here in the New Testament. In the New Testament, we get our word actually witness, martyria. We get martos. We get our word martyr from that. These that have run the race and fought that fight. That cloud is plural, not singular. In studying this metaphor, I love what this said. When you look at this metaphor, it is actually an amphitheater. Now, writing to the Hellenistic, the Greek people, which we suspect the Greek Jews is what this was, writing to them, they were very familiar with the Colosseum, with the amphitheater. They were very familiar with the Olympic Games, the games that were played there, and they knew this very well. So when he said the amphitheater, I guess for us today, we would say that our Colosseums would be these huge stadiums where we play the football at, where you put 60, 80,000 people within it. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of people. When you look at the Super Bowl game, when you look at the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, all of these bowls that hold these thousands and thousands of people, the metaphor of this is that it is a coliseum that has seats that are in tiers, and literally row upon row upon row upon row that go seemingly up into the sky to the clouds. So when he says you are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, the amphitheater setting that has the seats that go up and standing down on the floor of the amphitheater, the Colosseum, you look up and it would appear that those seats would go to the clouds. Now I say that, I want you to get that word picture in your mind. As he writes to these readers and he tells them, you are surrounded. You're running a race. You're running a race. And you're surrounded by all of these people. Lay aside every weight, the sin, or every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. You know, I really don't watch track at the Olympics or anything anymore. Because, have you seen what they don't wear? Because you have to have a magnifying glass to see what they wear. Well, as a runner today, the runners take everything off they possibly can. Literally, and the wording of this is lay aside every weight, and sin that ensnares you. You are literally stripping yourself naked, leaving only what you need to cover, of course, the essential areas, so that you can run and maximize your speed. Runners today will shave every hair off their body to gain that 1/100th or 1,000th of a second. That's why they don't wear loose-fitting shorts. That's why if you look at the male runners, they will have no hair on their arms. When I was in high school, I ran with guys that shaved their legs. So I had to shave my ankles in basketball to wrap them up, and I felt like an idiot. I'll just be honest with you. And these guys were shaving their legs, and I'm going, ain't no way. Number one, I'm not that fast. I wasn't Flash. But and I guess it was pride is what it was. But I want you to see is the writer is saying, get rid of the things in your life that are slowing you down. You're surrounded by all of these witnesses. And by the way, the witnesses is referring back to chapter 11. All of those patriarchs, all of those prophets, all of those men and women who paid the price. Can I tell you this? They are not witnesses to see you run a race. They are there to encourage you on. Do you know what their witness is? Their witness is saying, you can do it. I was there. I had the same thing and I won. You can do it too. They're not there to witness. You know, some will say, well, you know, they're up in heaven looking down upon us, and partially true. But when you look at the Greek setting that this was written in, the Greek language that this is written in, it's telling us they are there as your cheerleaders. But isn't it cool to have a cheerleader that says, been there, done that. I got the scars. I've got the memory. And I'm telling you, you can do it. You can do it. Some of us recovering from COVID had it bad, thought we might die. But you know, there's others walking around saying, you know, it's bad. But I got past it, and so can you. And I don't think having COVID's as bad as the recovery is. With the cough, with the shortness of breath, with the chronic fatigue that is there, with the no appetite, because I love to eat. But others to say, you know what? I had it last year. I'm going. I had it 6 months ago. I'm doing it. And I want you to know, it's just like these kids that are down here. We've all got medals. I got a third place medal for running in districts or regionals in the track meet. And I had my personal best for running the 2-mile run. But how did I know I was going to run against a guy that would run it in just over 10 minutes? That's like a calendar ahead of me. But I've got my medal, and I'm here to tell the ones, you know, you can do this. You can run past this. I'm at a place in ministry right now where some younger pastors, I've had the opportunity to minister, and they start telling me about, well, the church has done this. I've got a person over here doing this. And I kind of chuckle to myself and say, you know what, I remember that. I've been there, and I've had that happen, and you can make it. We're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses that reach up to the sky. Now, whatever's holding us down, let's get rid of it. What is weighing us down? We can't run a race. I did a sermon on this one time, and I put a bunch of rocks in a backpack. Probably about 40 pounds of rocks. I know it was 40 pounds because it took 2 hands to carry it to the stage. And I picked the biggest, burliest guy out there that I could find. And I said, hey, Roger, I want you to put that backpack on. He said, oh, yeah. He went over and picks it up with one hand and said, is that heavy? No, you know, man's man. So we'll put it on. So he puts it on. And he started I said, no, leave it on. Leave it on. I want you to stand right there. Stand. Don't sit. Stand right there. He said, okay. So I'm preaching my sermon, and he's kind of slumping. And I said, you getting tired yet? Nope, I'm fine. So I go about another 10 minutes, and you can see him starting to literally wilt. And I said, is that getting heavy? He said, well, I might be feeling a little something. I preached a 30-minute sermon, and he had that backpack on the whole time with 40 pounds of rock. Now, this guy was a chisel. He was, but as he continued on, I said, now, if you take that off, what's going to happen? He said, well, feel a whole lot better. And he took it off, and it was like you could see him just, and spring up. We run a race, and we carry all this stuff with us that encumbrances, that slows us down. Folks, it hurts our witness because he says, lay aside every weight. What is that weight? Every sin which so easily ensnares us. We hurt ourselves. We hurt our witness by the places we go. You know, we can lay the sin aside. And I mean, literally, we can renounce the sin and walk away from the sin. But in the sin, we don't return to it. But I will tell you this, the sin will return to you. It will return to you by the places you go, the people that you hang around with, the ones that you associate with. And I'm not telling you don't ever go to those people or just ignore them because, hey, I am Mr. Holy now and I don't need to be around you. You need to get holy or get lost. Those people need that witness, and you do. But we have to be careful in where we're going and how we're doing it and how much time we're spending, because that sin can ensnare us and bring us back. This is why I'm excited about a revival coming up. I feel like we've done that with the virus that's come upon us, with the separation from the church and the fellowship from one another. We've let some of the sin come back and associate. And the good Baptist word for that is backslidden. And we don't realize it. And we need to be reminded that we're in a race and we have slowed ourselves down. We're encumberancing ourselves. We're hindering the race that we're running because we're carrying baggage with us we don't need. Lay it aside and run the race that God has called you to. And let me tell you, I think some of the things that we have done is let things come in the absence of church, fill the void that church had, and church is back, and we haven't gotten rid of the void. What do I mean by that? We've let what filled the void stay there. And it's keeping us from being what God wants us to be. Lay it aside. Get rid of it. Run. And then he says, let us run the race with endurance. I remember as a runner, you get about 2/3 the way through, and what's in your mind is, I want to quit. I'm tired. My lungs are burning. My legs are hurting. And I got a coach over there, and he's got a stopwatch. And you know what he's saying? Pick it up, Perkins! And then I have some others that are saying, you got this, come on. You can do it. And I get her halfway around the track. I got to go 8 laps, and I have a coach here saying, pick it up, Perkins. And I got another one over here saying, did he not say, pick it up, Perkins? Come on, move it, you're falling behind. I don't know whether I was falling behind or not. But I know when I got to that last lap, there was always going to be that little bit that was left. And I could pick up that pace. And I would get halfway around, and when I got to that last 200 meters, I knew I had something left. And when I got to that last 100 meters, I had the kick, and you give it everything that you got. But you know, just 2 laps ago, I'm thinking, man, I can't do this. I got to quit. I'm burning. My legs are hurting. And we want to make all these excuses today. We need to run the race before us with endurance. If those people out there are mean, or better yet, those people in that church are mean. Those people in that church don't like me. They won't include me. I went out to witness and they slammed the door. I come to people and they walk on the other side of the road because they know I want to tell them about their great need for Jesus. It's hard when the demands of the world are there. My family is pressing in on me. My wife or my husband doesn't understand. My boss has no sympathy for anything that's going on at church at all. My coach says if I can't give 110% to this, I don't need to be playing. What's God saying? God never demands 110%. All he wants is you to give him all. That's just 100%. Folks, there is no 110%. There isn't. But God's saying we need to run it with endurance, knowing that there is a finish line. What is it that we're running? He says, the race that is set before us. I will tell you right now, my race is different than your race. Your race is different than the person across the aisle, the person in front or behind you. Your race is different. God has a map, a course that is mapped out for every single one of us. You know, you look at the mothers in the church. You look at Kristen, you look at the 2 Kristen Myers, or Lovell and Kristen Moore, and you look at Tracy back there with her kids, and then you look at Suzette up here with the grandkids, and you look over here at Pat. You know, you're all mothers, but every one of you, God has a different course mapped out for you. Pat, you cracked me up last week when you put on there, ain't been in church in 2 weeks. If my kids are misbehaving, would you let me know? Or what? Your girls ain't misbehaving. You're not here, and they're scared to death of you. They know. But then on the other hand, Kristen Lovell back here saying, I'm afraid to leave my boys alone for 5 minutes. And then you get Jerry and Teresa, their mom walked in, the grandkids, and made sure they were sitting. There ain't no reason why Jolie and Jacob ain't going to get in any more trouble than they're going to walk right in front of you, Jerry and Teresa, and they're going to sit down. But I want you to see, every one of you moms, every one of you dads, there's a different race that you're running. But God's got it all mapped out for you. And what He's told you is on your mark, get set, go. Now run that race. And you know what? That race is going to get hard. Raised 3 kids. They've all turned out pretty good, but I will tell you this, I had my doubts. There was a while when I wondered. And I know it said, train up the child in the way of the Lord, and when he grows old, he will not soon depart from it. But I know it also says after that you're supposed to take the rod and beat the child because it won't hurt him. And I'm thinking maybe I didn't take that rod enough. And you kind of like to take that, but I have to have faith, and I have to run that race. And my race right now is not raising kids. My race now is spoiling my grandbabies and the hope that there's going to be. What is your race that you're running? Because He has set a race before you. You know what? Don't run someone else's race. And just because you get discouraged and you see them pulling ahead, don't be discouraged. God is right there for you. And remember, there's a lot of moms ahead of you that run that race. There's a lot of moms ahead of you in this church. Some of you, your moms are in this church. But they ran it. And some, when I think about that cloud of witnesses, I think about the ones that were the founders of this church, that this church was built upon. I think about the ones who lived their life and held steady to a doctrinal integrity that would not let this church waver from it and let it be built. And they're up there cheering us on, saying, you can do it, because they have run the race already and they know what it is. They know what it's like. But then he moves on and he says, and when you're running that race, lay aside, get rid of that stuff that's weighing you down. You don't need it. And by the way, for the Hebrews, that would have been the law. You don't need the law. Jesus is enough for salvation. And when people are out there telling us today, well, you need Jesus and you got to do this and this and this and this. No, you don't. You may want to do that. The Bible may encourage you and run that race, but don't pick up something. I've got to read that 25-pound King James Bible and carry it with me everywhere they go. You may have a 3-ounce pocket New Testament, and that will do you. Thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against God, as you read today, Gary. We need to remember that. Lay it down. But he goes on and he says, you're running that race looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith. Looking unto Jesus. Folks, that looking unto Jesus is not where'd he go, where'd he go, where'd he go, where'd he go, where'd he go. Jesus is right there. It is, that word literally is for the word focus. Keep your focus on Jesus. You know, sprinters that run, they tell them, you don't look at the guy in the left lane and the right lane. You keep your eye on the finish line. You don't pay any attention, because the moment that you look to the right or the left, you've broken your concentration, you've broken your stride. Keep your focus. I think if there's one thing, church, if there's one thing we need today, it's these words. Keep your focus. Let your focus be on the race that God called you to run. Not the race someone else is running. Not that they're ahead of you, behind you. But what has God called you to do? Keep your eyes on Jesus. Focus. You know, this is where, church, we've missed it. We've lost our focus. Our focus is we have a world that have lost people in it, and they are going to a sinner's hell. And we have the gospel that tells them how to have eternal life. We've lost that focus. Satan is trying with our convention to make us take our focus off of evangelism. I know what happened this week. I know the DOJ is investigating Southern Baptist because of the report that came out. And I also know that every Southern Baptist leader in our convention has signed a letter and a pledge to cooperate 100% with the DOJ in whatever they want. What needs to be done, we're going to. But we are not going to lose our focus. Our focus is on a lost people in a lost world because they don't know Jesus. Church, our focus does not need to be whose Sunday school class is bigger. Our focus does not need to be on who's doing what in the church. Our focus needs to be on the lost people in the community around us, our neighbors that are down the road. Revival's an awesome time to tell people, come and hear about Jesus that changed my life. Not look at him and say, you know, I go to that church, I'm pretty good, and it wouldn't hurt you to come because you could be better. And I hear, well, I know those folks, and we really don't want them in the church. I tell you what, there's not a church that people don't need to be in. And if they don't know the truth, if they practice something other than the truth, they need to be in this church because that's where they're going to hear the truth. You can say amen. We need to keep our eyes on Jesus. Why? Because he is the author and the finisher of our faith. Our faith started with him on the cross. He came from heaven. He left heaven, came to earth, lived as a man. He went 3.5 years in ministry, and he observed every kind of scorn that was possible. Do you know who Jesus' biggest adversaries were? The church people. Did it stop him? No. Did it slow him down? No. Who was Jesus' harshest words to in the New Testament? To the church. He is the author. Who is it that crucified him? Don't say the Romans. The Romans were the ones that were the agent that Jesus used, or that God used to crucify his son. Jesus is the author. He was put on a cross. He died, was in the grave 3 days, rose from the dead, seen by many over a course of 40 days, ascended to heaven with the promise that he would come back and his kingdom would be established then. He is the author, but he is also the finisher, the completer of our faith. It's Jesus. Now, as he is writing, as the writer of Hebrews is writing, he's reminding the Hebrews when he says the finisher of our faith. He's the completeness of our faith. What he did is enough. The sacrifices need to be gone. Jesus is enough. That's what we need to remember. He's the author and the finisher of our faith. And it says, for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. Now I want you to think about those words. The joy set before him, he endured the cross. Is the joy set before him the desertion, the scourging, the crucifying, the denouncing? No. The joy that's set before him is he knew what the race was, and by doing what he was doing, he was going to make it possible for all to have salvation. His death means we live. He is the finisher of our faith. And the joy that was set before him, he knew this what's had to be so that we would no longer be separated from him. God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Knew that he had to go to the cross, and it was joy that he could do this, knowing that he would be, as it says at the end of verse 2, has sat down at the right hand of God. I'm done, Dad. I finished the race. I think the Apostle Paul said it the best. I've run the race. I fought the fight. I've stayed the course. There is for me a crown of righteousness waiting. Paul knew he was going to die. But look at what Paul accomplished. I like to think when I think about those cloud of witnesses, I like to think whenever I'm preaching a sermon, there is a coliseum in heaven that's saying amen. That Paul can be saying, preach it, brother, I did too. But you know what? They beat him, they stoned him, they ran him out of town, they tried to defame him. I don't have all that. Paul is saying, if I can do it, so can you. But you know, there's many other saints also that are up in heaven, and they're the witnesses because they've got the t-shirt that says, been there, done that. There's nothing you're going through that they haven't been. So what's the takeaway from this? Number one, lay aside everything that's slowing you down. Get rid of it. Number two, you got a whole bunch of people around you in this building and that are up in heaven saying, you can do this. I did it, and look at what the return was. Look at what I got out of it. Run it with endurance. You have to put one foot in front of the other, in front of the other, in front of the other. I don't know about you, but I hate alarm clocks, because an alarm clock is a reminder of what's getting ready to happen. I like waking up on my own. I wished I had an automatic coffee pot that would start where I could just smell that coffee, because my day doesn't begin until I get out of bed, and I have to put one foot in front of the other every day. And whatever I go through, whatever it's going to be, I have to put one foot in front of the other. I have to run the race, setting aside all the encumbrances, remembering I've got people cheering me on that have been there, putting one foot in front of the other, and I have to keep my focus on Jesus. I'm like Peter. If I take my focus off of Jesus, then I'm going to lose. I'm going to sink like a rock. And finally, we have to remember the example that Jesus set before us, and we need to follow that example. And one day, we too, we won't sit down at the right hand of God, because that's Jesus' place, but I will be in the presence of God Almighty Himself and get to worship the Lamb. Can you? What the writer of Hebrews was doing was calling the people to a belief that Jesus Christ was enough, and to run that race with Him. For you today, the writer of Hebrews is telling you, here's your takeaway. You got a race set before you. Run it, keeping your eyes on Jesus. Take away what's slowing you down. Run the race with faith. Run the race, keep the faith. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Maybe today it's time to put our eyes back on Jesus, or just to put our eyes on Jesus for the first time and say, Lord, I'm ready to run the race. What number are we singing, Jared? 134, Big Red Book. Father, we thank you. Stand, please. Thank you for this time. We stand, Lord Jesus, we stand in awe of you. We stand in your presence, but I pray that inside our hearts are bowing. Our soul is melting. Lord, we're running a race, and we need the encouragement. We're running a race, and we've looked around us, and we're discouraged. Today, we want to run that race and keep our eyes on you. Where we have picked up things that slow us down, where we've taken our eyes off of you, Lord, let us get rid of the encumbrances and let us renew our focus on you today. Let your will be done in this